I cannot wait to speak to our first guest of the day. Like I said, it has been 11 years since he's been on the program. It is impossible for me to have more respect for an individual, considering what he has done, his resume, his body of work, but also considering how he conducts himself, his humility, how he treats others, how he treats the business. No one says a bad word about this man. Everyone has the utmost respect for him. Everyone pays homage to him, and it was so great to see him back in the limelight just a couple of weeks ago in Las Vegas, in his adopted home state of Nevada, getting his flowers once again, two-time Hall of Famer now, going in there with the great Bret the Hitman Hart for their incredible match at WrestleMania 13. It was beautiful stuff. And so it was a big, big deal for me when he said yes to come back on the show. And it is such a great thrill, such a great privilege, honor to say hello once again to the Texas Rattlesnake himself, the one and only, the inimitable, the often imitated, never duplicated, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Hello, Steve. How are you?
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's so great to talk to you again. I really appreciate you doing this. Thank you.
And thanks for having me on. I'm looking at myself. I got a bunch of red here. My lighting is not optimal. I look great, so it's just my lighting here in my wife's office.
Listen, I don't know what you're talking about. This is a shoot. You look fantastic, all right? So don't worry about all of that. You look tremendous.
Good to see you again.
Well, there's so much to talk to you about, but I actually want to start here, and perhaps you will be a little bit surprised as to where I'm starting. I do this show. I talk for many hours, and I often talk about the art of interviewing. I love interviewing. I'm a real nerd when it comes to the science, and I know that sounds a little bit like posh. Oh, there's a science to interviewing. I strongly believe it's my favorite thing that I get to do is interview people. And when I'm asked who are my favorite interviewers, at the very top of the list, I always say Stone Cold Steve Austin. And when I'm asked who are my favorite interviewers who have gone from being an athlete turned interviewer, because as you know, an athlete, they field the questions, they're a little egocentric, they don't know how to turn the tables. Going from interviewee to interviewer is not easy. You did it better than anyone. You're number one in my opinion. And so I want to give you that props because till this day, when I have a Brett on or a Goldberg on, I go back to your sessions with them and the interviews are phenomenal. You listen, you're empathetic, you have follow-ups, you steer the conversation in a perfect way. You don't get enough credit for how good of an interviewer you are. And quite frankly, if I could be selfish, I wish you would do more of it. I miss your interviews.
Well, thank you very much. That's a great compliment coming from you. It's been very successful. And I don't know, I guess, I don't know, I got lucky because I looked at a lot of people when I started, kind of doing a podcast thing and interviewing people. And, of course, when you first start talking to people, even though you've been talking your whole life, the interview part of something is different. So it's a learned skill. So I guess I just grabbed onto it okay, but I wouldn't say I'm the best by any stretch. I've been thinking a little bit about starting back in the podcast business. I took my podcast off the air about 5 years ago at about 2020. So I've been thinking about getting back in the game, but maybe doing something that's just a little bit more about my life, more so than interviewing people. But I'm kind of trying to make up a decision on that. I started racing in the last 3 years. I've been staying busy doing stuff like that. So I appreciate that. That's a hell of a compliment.
Please do it. And the sessions were great as well. Those chats were amazing. So, from one viewer and fan, just like to say, would love to have them back. And I just love the way you went about doing things. When you got the call that you were going back into the Hall of Fame, this time for a match, the first of its kind, what did you think? What was your reaction?
Well, I knew it was a great match, no doubt. And I knew it as soon as it was going down because Chicago, Rosemount Horizon, one of my favorite buildings to work in, probably the favorite building for me to work in. And I love Bret Hart, and we just always had great chemistry from day one. And Triple H gave me the call, and I said, "Hey, man, we're thinking about doing this, and this is going to be the first match to go in." And man, I have such a long list of great matches, in my mind that could have gone first. But this one obviously made sense. I think there's some great matches. This is one of the great matches, but just the historical impact that it had on the rest of the business after this match unfolded, where Bret would go on to become a heel, I would turn into an anti-hero babyface and, have the Austin run. And I couldn't have had that run without Brett. And so it was Vince's vision of what they could have done with superstar Billy Graham way back in the day when he was starting to being loved as a heel. And I don't think they knew what to do with him. Backlund beat him for the title, and Bob Backlund is a great champion and a great wrestler. But superstar was never the same. I guess I didn't see the big picture that Vince saw of turning me babyface. Certainly, I was becoming one just from crowd response. Vince saw that. Vince had that vision. We did the turn, the double turn, executed that with perfection. Shout out to Ken Shamrock, who was a big part of it as well, and the announce team. But it was awesome. It was a great night at the office. And every time you go in the ring, you want to have a match like that. And that doesn't always happen, of course. But at the highest level, we were able to execute and go out there and have a great match. And it was just a big honor to go in and be the first match of its kind to start this new trend.
Just a day or so after the announcement was made, I saw you did an interview with someone. I think you're at like an autograph signing, and they asked you for your immediate thoughts on going in. And you said, a lot happened leading up to that match behind the scenes, but you won't go into it now. Being the inquisitive mind that I am, perhaps we have a little more time. What were you referring to when you said a lot was going on leading up to that match?
Well, like I said, we went into the finish room, and it was just myself, Vince, and Brett, and we kind of got the deal about what we needed to do. And then Brett and I went out there and sat around the ring for a little bit. We're just kind of shooting the breeze and not really laying out a whole lot. I mean, that's just not the way me and Brett worked. And, he just kind of mentioned it in passing, that it might be great, if you got busted open. And I was like, I don't know about that. And so turns out I hit my head on that guardrail and got busted open. And, we already had that crowd hook, line, and sinker. But that color in that match just magnified it times 100. And then ultimately, at the end of the match, when I'm trying to get out of that sharpshooter, that devastating finishing maneuver that Brett used, I couldn't escape. And just trying to strain and do my damnedest to get out of that. And the blood pouring down my face, one of the most iconic images in the history of pro wrestling. I'm not just sitting there trying to blow smoke up my ass. That's just the way it was.
Couldn't agree more. An iconic shot turned into T-shirts and posters and all that stuff and more. I think a lot of people were wondering if you would be involved in WrestleMania since you were there. You would do some kind of appearance. In the end, we got it. Was that the only plan, or were other things potentially discussed as far as your involvement Saturday, Sunday?
No, man, I was just happy to be there. God dang, I had a knee replacement, give or take about 4 months ago. And for a total knee replacement to heal up 100%, you're looking at about a year. And so that was on December 4th. So whatever the timeline is, give or take around 4 months, I'm feeling really good. I don't squat anymore. I'm doing some Hindu squats along with my workouts, but I haven't even tried to run yet. So I don't even know if I can run. Not that I run a lot to the ring, but I would imagine I'm about 30 or 35%, not 100%, at about 35% of capacity. And so, I did what I could, and just to be involved in the show, go out there and announce the attendance at WrestleMania night 1, night 2 combined. And that's what I did. And that was about all I could do. I mean, earlier in the year, we'd had, not really discussions, just like briefly, hey, man, if you want to be there, maybe we can figure you in. And I said, hey, man, I'm getting my knee replaced. We'll see what happens, when that time comes. The time came, and I can't do much.
Logan Paul said on his podcast that he offered you a sum of money to dress up in a Prime bottle, and you turned it down. Is that true?
Man, if he said that, I'm not going to call him a liar. And I just thought that was kind of personal business. But so since it's out there, yeah, I turned it down. I'm in the beer business. I sell Broken Skull beer, and we're in about 25 or 30 states. I don't know anything about his product. I don't know about the ingredients in it, if it's good, if it's bad, or whatever. So it wasn't my thing. So yeah, I turned it down just because I wasn't into it, and that's no disrespect to him or his product.
I saw the reaction to that news coming out after he said it, and I think it was like 99.9% people saying, thank God he turned it down. I don't think a lot of people, with all due respect to him and his product, which I have no issues with, I don't think people wanted to see you dressed up in a Prime bottle.
No, man, it just that's not my gimmick, And like I said, he's doing really well. Obviously he's hustling and he's going and getting it, and more power to him. It just it wasn't a great fit for Steve Austin.
Could I ask? Obviously, I'd be remiss if I don't ask your perspective on the ATV riding. What happened there?
Oh, just different throttle setup than what I'm normally used to. And long story short, just different throttle system because I'm pretty damn handy on a four wheeler.
Any sort of aftermath there to all of that?
No, just I was embarrassed about it, and I think everybody's okay. But I mean, you go out there on the biggest night, in wrestling, and you end up like that. It's not the greatest day at the office. You go out there and you want to give people the best show that you can, and when you fall short of that, it's not great.
Speaking of unannounced appearances or whatnot, I was there a couple years ago in Texas when you and KO had the finale on night one, and I always wondered about something. If it was always the plan for it to turn into what it turned into, why wasn't it promoted as such? Because it was promoted as the KO show, right? It was promoted as the KO show, it was promoted as sort of like an interview, and then it ended up being almost like a full-blown match. And I wondered, wow, the reaction to the buildup would have been so great. Could you tell us how we got to that point, and was it always supposed to be like that?
No, just because I mean we were on uncharted waters when they came up with that. It was getting pretty close to, the time that it was going to be WrestleMania. We went out and filmed that promo right down the road from my house, but I didn't get a ring to practice in. I trained like a sumbitch to get in shape for that match. And when you don't have a ring, when you're not doing cardio specific activities like running the ropes, picking somebody up, slamming them, doing wrestling activity, your cardio is just not there. So it was going to be billed as what it was, and I guess so. Maybe it would lessen the expectations of the people. Like you say, hey, this can be a full blown match. Well, again, I wasn't in that kind of condition. I looked good, but my gas tank wasn't there. And man, I've always prided myself. Anybody that's ever worked with me knows that if we're going, I might. If I'm not going to say that I never blew up, but if I did, I never stopped. I kept going. At WrestleMania, working with KO, man, I was blowed pretty good. But I kept just getting a sip of beer just to kind of quench my thirst because I was out of shape. I wasn't in ring shape. So I guess bottom line, long story short, just so if you haven't, and I hadn't been in a ring in almost 20 years, it's just like Triple H, Undertaker, and Hogan said. On one hand, I don't have any timing. On the other hand, I don't really know what I have. Another hand, I'm not calloused up. My body's not ready. So each one of those guys said something that was very true about that match, and zero timing. I ran the ropes 2 days for that match in a ring they had at the hotel. So, if you'd have built it as such, those would have been high expectations to live up to. So then you over deliver on something that's unexpected.
Okay. I completely understand. If that ends up being your last sort of active quote unquote match, are you at peace with that?
Totally, totally. There's always that part in the back of your mind where, there was a match. I think they built it as like an exhibition match. It was between Nick Bockwinkel and Billy Robinson over in Japan. And man, those two guys, they put on a really nice clinic. I think it's about a 11, 13, or 15-minute match. And of course, the Japanese people really appreciated that match. And those guys were badasses. They could really work. So to do something like that would be fun. Again, it's an exhibition. You're not trying to go out there and steal the show. You're just going to go out there and try to do it one more time in front of the fans because you love the business as much as you do. And it would be very interesting. So you always think in the back of your mind about something like that. And again, exhibition style, so you don't have all that pressure of trying to be who you were in your athletic prime. Because when you're out of prime, there's just a night and day difference of how you can perform, and that's just the bottom line. That's the way it is for any athlete in any sport. But if that was my last endeavor in the ring, I'm totally at peace with it. I ran hard. I had fun. We achieved a lot, and it was what it was, and I have no regrets. So I gave it everything I had.
Were you ever, when you were coming up, when you were at the very top of the game, cognizant of maybe some of the guys who stuck around too long and said that you didn't want to be one of those guys? I know injuries played a part. Your body plays a part. You had been through the ringer. But I also feel like the reason why people bring this up so much is because they want more of you. You never stuck around too long. We didn't get an oversaturation of Stone Cold. Were you cognizant of that and didn't want to be because like even right now you could be around, you could be doing stuff on camera. I'm sure the door is open. Do you not want to be one of those guys?
No, I don't want to hang around too long. But you know, when I look back, I think your perspective on things that happened in the ring change kind of as you know go down the road of life. When I look at some of the guys who maybe some people considered hanging around too long, I get the fact that, okay, maybe on one hand, financially, they didn't take care of themselves. But then also on the other hand, it's just, and probably more so, it's just they love the freaking business so much that they just don't want to get out of it. And I didn't have an exit strategy either. I just simply pulled the cord on myself, pulled the plug due to what was going on, doing my list of injuries, and I got out. But a lot of people hang around just because they love that shit so much, and I just can't blame them for that. And that's just the way it is. But anytime I go out in front of a crowd, I kind of have a timer in my head about, leave them wanting more. Don't want them. You don't want to leave them wanting you less. Like, God dang, it was cool seeing Austin, but he stayed out there all freaking day. Jesus Christ, get him out, give him the hook. I don't want to be that guy when I'm going out there. So that's kind of the way it was with my career, and that's kind of the way I play my appearances. I'd rather get out too soon rather than stay too long and wear out your welcome.
There was a lot of obviously chatter in the aftermath of WrestleMania. Did they get it right? Did they get it wrong? I'm wondering, did you watch both nights? And if so, I'd love to just ask your perspective. Who better than you? And so the first question is, did you watch the entirety of the two events?
No, I didn't.
What about the ending of night two, the Cena Rhodes finish?
I didn't see it.
You didn't see it? Wait, did you go home?
Yes, I did.
Wow. Any particular reason?
No, I just wanted to beat the crowd.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and I haven't watched it back.
Wow. Do you not watch it actively these days? Like, are you not? I mean, maybe you follow, but don't sit down and watch all the hours.
I follow WWE on IG.
Yep.
That's where I get most of my content. I get the snippets and stuff that they play, and that's what I see.
Okay. I did see a clip of you and Io Sky. You seem to be very impressed with her. She was one of the earlier matches. What about that performance, that match, led to this moment between the two of you?
That was one of my favorite matches of the entire 2 days. And right before this, about 30 minutes before this, I saw Bianca Belair, and I told her the same thing. Had I seen Rhea, I would have told her the same thing. Man, it was just an amazing match. Great timing, very physical. And those three women are badasses to begin with. All of them are great workers. And man, Bianca, in the short time that she's been around, has really picked everything up. And I really like that match, and also like that match. Well, I liked Drew McIntyre's match with Priest. I liked the match with Ray, Braun Breaker. Who else was in there? But it was four guys in the ring, and Dominic goes over.
Yeah.
And what a finish! And the right guy went over, and a ring full of killers. Of course, you don't expect him to go over. That was another one of my favorite matches.
Could I ask what do you like right now about the business, or maybe who in particular? Like, who is someone that you're like, that guy has it, that guy's or that girl is doing it right?
Well, Rhea's doing it right. I mean, she's been around for now. She's a veteran, but she still gets better. I like the way she bumps. She takes a lot of pride in the way she bumps, the way she sells, and she's a solid physical person. I'd like to see Charlotte get back on track, with her storyline or whatever's going on with her, because I love her. Bailey didn't get to perform at WrestleMania. I don't know if they're starting up an angle with her and Becky. Of course, I'm glad Becky's back. Guy wise, I love what Braun Breaker's doing. Want to see how he improves. It's interesting to see that he's with Paul Heyman, and if Paul Heyman can't get the best out of you, you're a lost cause. And that kid has blue chipper written all over him. So under the tutelage or under the learning tree of Paul Heyman, I look for big things from Braun Breaker. And there's a ton of men and women that I'm forget, or not forget, but not mention just because I don't watch. My wife doesn't watch wrestling, so I don't watch wrestling as much as I used to. We eat dinner and watch a show.
I love that. I do love the fact that you're very well aware of. I mean, you're mentioning guys and girls doing stuff, so it's not like you're completely,
No.
out of the mix here.
Yeah, man. I mean, God dang, man. The business has changed so much since when I got in there, because if you worked at the Nashville Fairgrounds, that building is shaped like a rectangle. Heels are dressing over here, babies over here. There's no common dressing room. That referee's going to come in there and give each guy the finish. So you're going to go out there and call that in the ring. So that's the way we were working, and that was a weekly territory. We were in what was Nashville? That was a Friday night or a Saturday night show, and we were traveling the rest of the USWA territory. So that's what I grew up on and grew up doing, and listening to the people and making your decisions, accordingly, and calling that match in the ring. And now it's just turned into the fast-paced, more athletic style that it has, and the men and women are amazing. The storylines are they're let me see, a little more complicated, very interesting, more levels of depth. So I enjoy it for what it is. I am a pro wrestling fan. I'm glad they're calling it pro wrestling again. The sports entertainment thing was great for what it was intended, so you didn't insult people's intelligence. And now being on Netflix, they've kind of lifted the curtain a little bit more. But I watch each stage that the business develops into, and I appreciate it from the caveman days into the nowadays. I'm a fan.
Wrestling fans, they they're old school in a sense. They're nostalgic, and so when things like there's this documentary that's coming out, a series on Netflix where they're going to show behind the scenes, like the writing process, the creative process, called WWE Unreal, or even little things like ads all over the ring. They get very fired up. To the non-fan, you'd be like, who cares? When you see this stuff, how do you feel about it? Are you old school like that? Should there not be ads on the ring? Should there not be cameras in the writing room?
Man, that's where I'm still I'm a little old school on that. And, it's just like, I'm a big Magic fan, but, if Harry Houdini's still around, I don't want him to tell me how he does it. I want to figure out how he does it. And if I can't, well, then I'm going to keep wondering, and I'm going to keep watching, but I'm going to keep wondering. So don't tell me how he's doing it, but see if I can figure it out myself. Because I want to think that, I know it's not magic, it's an illusion, but let me keep wondering about that illusion.
Hey there, sorry to interrupt. Just want to remind you, if you haven't already, please do hit that subscribe button. We would appreciate it very much. And while you're at it, give us a thumbs up too. We've got live shows, interviews, clips, and a whole lot more going on this here channel. All right, now back to the show. Very much agree with that. I've heard you say recently that you never wanted, I'll correct myself. It was your idea to turn heel at WrestleMania 17, but you regret it. Is that a fair assessment? You wish you didn't do it. You kind of wish that you called an audible in the moment and stunned Vince. And that led me to think of John Cena. And I also have heard you say you didn't watch it. And I know here you're telling me you don't watch it. And I 100% understand that. Could I just ask, do you think there will become a time down the line where he regrets he didn't have to turn heel? Do you feel like the same thing will happen to him?
First of all, to answer what you said, yeah, man, if I could go back in a magic time machine, I would have told Vince, hey, man, we used him. He helped me interfere. We beat the hell out of Rock with that chair. It was very physical. I laid that stuff in. And I went into that match, that buildup, that package that they put together that really kind of reinvigorated me. And we were both in there, the number one and two baby faces, or number one and two talents in the world going head to head. And I love working with The Rock. But I'd have called that audible, and I told Vince, after it's all said and done, watch a stunner. I'd have dropped him on that stack of dimes he called a neck, and I would have stayed a babyface. Going on to John Cena, man, I love what Cena's doing. I love the way that guy talks, his promos, where he's going with it. I know some people think differently, but I like the ride that he's taken me on because I'm invested in John Cena. I've watched him for a long time. He's a class act, and I think he's going to look back and love what he's doing because he loves the business, and I think he truly enjoys it. And he loves it so much that at this stage of his life, he's had so much success. He's had so much success at this stage of his life in the business and outside of the business in the movie industry and entertainment. You know, he's only doing this because he loves it that much, and he wants to take the people on another ride, and a ride that they haven't been on yet, and it's warranted and deserved.
I love that, by the way. Did you ever think that we would be living in a time where Vince McMahon is alive but not affiliated with WWE?
It seems weird, but I mean, only for a minute because, you know, when they sold the company to TKO or whatever the deal is, you know, it was like, okay, it was kind of like the end of an era. And now that we've taken a breath, okay, we digested that the era's over and it is what it is. So I remember talking to Vince 100 years ago when he wanted to take the company public. And I told him, I said, dude, it was just me and him. I said, why do you want to go public? He goes, Steve, to be more legitimate. I was like, man, what the F? Be more legitimate. He owned the whole damn thing. You know, it was worth a shit ton of money. You know, how much do you want? So I never understood it to begin with, you know, and I loved working with Vince. I loved working with all of the McMahons, and I've had a tremendous time working with WWE, and we haven't always seen eye to eye on everything. But, you know, and I gave him all my blood, sweat, and tears, and they gave me a bunch of opportunities to go out there and crush home runs and grand slams if the opportunity presented itself and I could carry out the mission. We had a great time together. But, you know, that era is gone and a new one has begun, and it's taken off, and it seems like it's going good.
Can I ask, when were you the happiest in your career? Does a time frame, does a year come to mind?
No, that's a interesting question. Just because some of the happiest days of my life was when I was living at the Congress Inn in Nashville, Tennessee, starving my ass off. You know, eating tuna fish and raw potatoes because I didn't have a hot plate or nothing to cook them with. Damn sure didn't have a microwave. And I was happy then because I was learning so much. And, you know, when you're starving and you're making $15 or $20 a night, and those are shoot payoffs. That was how much I was making. And I was probably getting overpaid. And most of those round trip most of those round trips, you know, going to and from Memphis back to Nashville, Evansville back to Nashville, Louisville back to Nashville. I mean, those close 400-mile round trips, man. I was starving, but I was having a blast because I was making money, you know. And when I got the call up to WCW, and you know that was a great time. When I went to ECW, that was a great time. And hey, man, when I finally broke through as Stone Cold Steve Austin, it just became a force. Hey, that was a damn good time. It just seems like no matter there's so many times when you're having the time of your life, and it's not always about getting on top. Sometimes it's just fighting through the struggles and those little wins of like going to Evansville, Indiana on a Wednesday night and getting a little bit better pop than you got the week before, and maybe a little bit bigger pop than you got the week before. It's all these little things that add up, you know, and over the course of a career, I can't say that any time was my. Well, I could say that when I got white hot, Stone Cold, that was a freaking blast. But, you know, I guarantee you, man, those days when I was starving because I wanted to be a pro wrestler 100% through and through, and my whole totality, I wanted to be a pro wrestler. And when you get a chance to put on some tights and some boots and go in there and work in a ring and you're living out your dream, man, that's a good freaking time.
Just for nostalgic sake, we were looking back to see if you competed on this day, and maybe this jogs your memory, maybe it doesn't. Just for fun, April 30th, that's today, 1992, at the South Florida Fairgrounds at the Expo Center in West Palm Beach, Florida. A man by the name of Steve Austin teamed up with Rick Rude, the Dangerous Alliance, to go up against Ivan Koloff and Ricky Steamboat. They beat you on that night. Perhaps even more fun than that is that in 1996, you wrestled 3 times at a TV taping, once against Matt Hardy, the other against Fatu, and then Shawn Michaels for the belt in Des Moines, Iowa at the Veterans Memorial Auditorium right before, this is 96, right before King of the Ring. You had that run with Shawn Michaels. You had just turned from Ringmaster to Stone Cold, and you were about to explode. Any of that take you back 3 times? By the way, in that year, in that month in 96, you wrestled 22 times. We looked 22 times in the month of April back in 1996.
Man, back in the day, and really even before that, we were on the road. Sometimes, I mean, we were working 27 out of 30 days. And when you go to some of those TV tapings, you might be working anywhere from 3 to 4 times, depending on how you were booked. I mean, and that was just the mission, the task at hand. So working multiple times, these days, it seems like damn near impossible. But back in the day, that's just the way it was. And God, it's funny because I can't remember being in a ring with Ivan Koloff. You sure about that?
Yeah. Are you saying that here it is. Ivan Koloff and Ricky Steamboat defeated the Dangerous Alliance, Rick Rude and Steve Austin, April 30th, 1992 at the South Florida Fairgrounds Expo Center.
Golly, I guess if you say it happened, it did. I remember one time we were down there. I think it was in a little town right outside of Orlando called Pace, Florida, if I'm not mistaken. And we were all dressing in I don't know if it was like an RV or like a single wide. And for some reason, Harley Race was managing Vader at the time, and he was going to get out there. He's going to go out there. Someone didn't show up or whatever happened, and he was going to wrestle Ric Flair. Of course, Flair and Harley Race had wrestled a million times in the past. And I just remember something like Harley saying to Flair, something like St. Louis 76 or whatever it was. He was kind of giving him a match that they had 100 years ago, and they were basically to kind of go out there and do the same thing. So it was just a classic Harley moment. And you had to know Harley because Harley always kind of talked about like this. And, he was extremely tough and no one messed with Harley. And of course, Rick adored Harley, and Harley did so much for Rick. But to see those 2 old veterans go out there and put on a hell of a show and hear them have that brief conversation was something I still remember to this day, more so than the matches I would have had set TV taping.
Incredible. I'll let you go in a moment. I can't thank you enough for the time. I just wanted to ask because I went back and watched some of that match against Shawn Michaels on this day in 1996, and it's wild to see you in WWF at the time without the very iconic music that accompanied the rest of your career, the glass break and all that stuff. Do you remember when that was first presented to you, and do you remember how you felt when you saw, okay, this is the new music? Because you can't look at you without that music. That music did so much. Do you remember when it was all presented and came together? Because the music they had you walk out to didn't quite have the same type of punch, if you will.
Man, I was lost because I'd wrestled for 7 years as Stunning Steve Austin, and had some pretty decent music back in WCW. If you go back and listen to that. And then all of a sudden you got this slow, plodding, ringmaster type music that just, you can't get any kind of swagger to it. You can't get jazzed up about it. It doesn't spike your adrenaline. You're like lost. And so it's like an actor forming an identity or like a bio to be able to draw, decisions from in an acting role because of their past. And I didn't have any past. I was trying to go in on something completely fresh that I couldn't identify with it. And I was basically in no man's land walking to the ring, trying to make chicken salad out of chicken shit. And somehow, some way it ended up working. But in that transition, it didn't necessarily feel like it always was. But, I was committed to being the best that I could be. And I had to weather the storms that anybody else would have to. And I did.
And it all worked out tremendously. And once again, you get your flowers that you so deserve. Shout out to the GFI racing team, which you are a part of, Broken Skull Beer, El Segundo Beer, which I do believe you recently celebrated 10 years with them. You're a force now in the beer business, which is tremendous to see. I hear you're getting back into the movie business as well with Walk-Ons, right?
Hey, I'm getting back in no movie business, man.
Hey, come on.
You bullshitting me?
No, I mean that's the word on the street. That's what people are saying.
Ain't nobody told me about it.
All right. Well, that's what I. So you're not involved in this.
Walk on?
Yeah.
I ain't never heard of it.
Okay. Well, apparently not. Apparently not.
Hey, man, I'm out here in BFE, Nevada, dude. I don't get the latest news until a couple weeks later.
Well, that's perfect. You're doing it right. You're out of the limelight. No one's bothering you. You're living your life. You appear to be very happy and getting back to 100% healthy. And it's tremendous to see. Again, I'm not trying to blow too much smoke up your behind, but it's a real privilege and honor to have you on the program and appreciate you taking some time out. So thank you very much. Congrats on the great honor a couple of weeks ago, and good luck with everything coming up as well. We really appreciate it and wish you well.
Look me up in another 11 years.
Okay. All right. Damn. I don't know if that's a compliment or not, but I'll take it.
Hey, no, give me a call. Let's talk again in a couple of years. It's great catching up with you. Big fan. Always love what you do.
Thank you, Steve. Means a lot. Appreciate it. There he is.
Buddy.
There he is, the great Stone Cold Steve Austin, kind enough to join us. Apparently not in the upcoming film Walk-Ons, but he is. I wanted to give a shout out. I sort of forgot there at the end. Shout out to Pancho and Macho, who, if you follow him on social media, you will know are his cats. There they are.
Two solid ass cats.
Two solid ass cats. And who's the gentleman behind him? Mr. Ed?
I don't know.
Steve Austin.
No, I mean, the guy just poking his head. He posts a lot about his cats, right?
Yeah, all the time.
Can I tell you my favorite thing about...
My favorite thing is a Mr. Ed reference in 2025.
Yeah.
You say your favorite thing, then I want to say my
sure.
favorite thing.
Golly. I should have...
Shut up.
By the way, my favorite thing... it's tremendous. Did you buy it just for this appearance?
No. It was Stone Cold for Halloween.
Oh, that's right. We should have showed him. Why didn't you mention that?
It's not about me.
Listen, my favorite thing about him, some will get it, some will not get it. He uses these like old school wrestling terms. It's a shoot this. We did a Broadway. I love everything about it. It doesn't get more old school than that guy. And someone, even like how he talks about like the babies were here, the heels were there, the referee came into the locker room to tell us. Do you understand what that is? At one time in the business, the baby faces and the heels, like if you go behind the scenes, if you go backstage at a wrestling event in 2025, everyone's just working out together. I told you guys, I think when my kids went back there the first time, the only time, I think they were like, oh, this isn't exactly, like they saw the guys going over things. I loved it. Of course, I know what it is, so I thought it was very cool. But there was once a time where they wanted to, keep the kayfabe up so very well that they would have the good guys on one side of the arena, the bad guys on the other side of the arena, and they wouldn't interact behind the scenes, just in case someone saw them. There was a thing in like the late 80s where Hacksaw Jim Duggan and the Iron Sheik were pulled over for some sort of like reckless driving, and it was a big deal because they were in the midst of a feud. Hacksaw was a good guy, Iron Sheik was a bad guy, and everyone was like, what is this?
They were driving around together.
Yes. Yes. It's a huge deal. You look it up. It's like the moment that everyone felt like the business was exposed. Fast forward some 40 years, 38 years, and there's documentaries showing us the behind the scenes. Now, I love that stuff. I eat it up. I adore it. This is not me saying, but it's just amazing to see how far it's come and how hard they try to keep that kayfabe intact. You know what I mean? It's an amazing
I always
thing.
love the stories of the heels healing off on little kids just because they had to maintain appearances.
Amazing.
Like at the IHOP asking for an autograph and they have to heal off on a
Spit
little
in their
kid.
face.
I love that. I love that stuff.
My favorite part of the interview was he kept kind of making references or using slang that a person from Texas would, and then you also introduced him as the Texas rattlesnake, and then 30 minutes into the interview, Frank goes, is this guy from Texas?
Oh,
So growing up
Like,
in
that's
Texas,
something we-
his
He's
name
I always
Austin.
get confused.
is
Is like, is it Steve Austin? Is it Stephen F. Austin? Because that's
He's like, BDE, we say that down in Texas.
BFE.
oh yeah.
BFE.
Home fuck deep jokes.
BDE, they
Not
say that
BDE. BDE. something else.
They say that everywhere.
Either way, I can't wait for walk-ons.
Okay, listen. I'm looking at something. Where is this from, Jordan? Jordan's sending me
This
something.
is IMDb. It says it's in pre-production, but it has him listed as the #1 star in the movie.
Are we sure?
Okay,
Steve Austin?
Click that part.
Yeah,
I
if you-
want you to see
is
if
it-
it's the
ma-
same.
ma-
Steve
going
Austin.
It took me right to
His
Stone
page?
Cold Steve Austin.
Steve Austin's
All right.
IMDb, where I'm like, let me make sure, and it's all just WWE stuff as previous.
Oh, sure enough. Oh, he's Steve Austin the fourth? I didn't realize.
Now I'm starting to think, who's the first?
No, that
Austin.
might be on IMDb. That might be like how many.
By the way, is it possible
Different
he was?
people with that
Is it
name.
possible he was kayfabing me there? Maybe he was no-selling me there.
I don't think so.
After a local factory closes down in a small town, a group of men that have been friends since high school decide to join their local D3 college football team
Yeah.
and help their sons have a national championship season. So the walk-ons are a bunch of old dudes walking on to their D3 team.
I don't know. I've never heard of it. I thought it was like a remake of something. Wasn't there another movie called Walk On or something?
No, The Rock did Walk On.
Yeah.
But it was not
Walk-
football.
I thought it was Walk Hard.
Walk hard is
Stand
the
tall?
Dewey Cox
Walk
story.
hard.
Standing
Walk
tall.
tall.
Standing
Walk
tall. Standing tall. or
Walk tall. Stand tall. Jesus, this
Yeah,
is
John C.
embarrassing.
Riley.
I
Shout
like
out
how he
Walk
just
Hard.
stiff-armed me there. He's like, nope, don't know what you're talking about. I find out the news 2 weeks later. What?
Walking tall. Walking tall.
Walking tall. There. Wow, not even close to walk. I guess walk.
No, it's the same thing. Come on.
Hey, how about when I asked him about the Logan Paul thing? I thought that was private business. I was like, ooh.
I like that.
But I also like how respectful his answer is. It's
Yeah.
like it's just not for me. That's not the Steve Austin character. And truth be told, like couldn't be more right. It
Oh my
was so
God.
weird to see him doing
It
that.
this says Chris Jericho is also in the walk-ons.
Yeah.
And Tyrus
Yeah.
and Marino. James Stone. James Stone is in it too.
Frank, you should have played that when he's like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. By the way, is this in the same category as James Tahuna?
No,
I mean, there's clearly visual evidence.
his reaction was also less funny
Yeah,
than Ty's.
of course. No, but is it like do we chalk this up to me effing up, or is it maybe just the internet screwing us?
No, I'm looking at the walk-ons IMDb page, and it does say lead star is Steve Austin as Mad Dog.
All right, well, there you go. Thanks for watching this video. Before you go, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for us. Also, give us a thumbs up, leave a nice comment. These things go a long way. And while you're here, do check out the rest of the channel. We've got live shows and full interviews, clips, and a whole lot more. We're doing big things here, and we appreciate your support very much.